Alchemy Issue 3. Why should you read comics? Because they're cool is unfortunately not an adequate answer to cover all the reasons why you should read comics. It's also not a long enough answer to fill up a webcast. Now, you may notice a slight bias towards comics in this webcast. Obviously, it's a webcast about reading comics, but that's mainly because I am rather passionate about the subject, in the same way that, say, Barry Norman is passionate about films. But as I've said in previous webcasts, the purpose of this is not to get people to be a comic book geek. It's actually just to get people to look at comics the same way they would look at a film or a book or a game, and maybe pick a comic up if it looked interesting enough. So a better way maybe of asking, why should I read comics, is, what do comics offer me that other media don't? All media do one or two things better than another media. Films offer compressed storytelling with a strong central premise. Books offer decompressed storytelling with vast rolling themes. And gaming offers interactive storytelling with a vast and vocal community. Now for me, comics offer the same intimacy as a book, better special effects than a film, and the same vocal community as gaming. Well, the one thing that they do better, for me personally, is an immediate level of immersion into a world that can be as real as this one or as fantastic as the creator of that comic wants it to be. Comics can achieve this immediate level of immersion by the way they deliver information to you through words and pictures. In a book, the prose has to describe the scene, the setting, who's talking, and many other factors that go into creating this wonderful atmosphere the books can deliver. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it is another step between the author and the reader. Comics deliver that information in one panel. In one picture, you can have the setting, the atmosphere, the time, who's talking, what they look like. All that information reaches the reader immediately, giving that greater level of immersion. A consistent tone of art in a comic can be far less jarring than a special effect in a film. Say, for example, in a comic, you have Godzilla trashing Tokyo. In a film, you're very aware that it's a guy in a rubber suit trashing Tokyo. Or a model of Tokyo. Or a bad CGI monster in the rain. And the community of comics is actually quite an old one. I'm desperate for new blood. I'm only joking. No, I'm not. But as I said, it's a very deep and very rich community. It has its bad points and its good points, like any community, but it's just as big as the gaming community, and probably just as vocal. Obviously, there are things that books, games, films do better than comics. But what comics do that's better than those media puts them on equal footing. If that gets you to go, well, okay, maybe a comic can be as enjoyable as a book or a film or a game, and you actually pick one up and read it, great. So because they're cool is actually a good enough reason to just read a comic. If you are interested in comics as a medium and as an art form, then I suggest you read Scott McCloud's comic, Understanding Comics, The Invisible Art. It's actually all about the mechanics that go into comics and about how time works in comics and how a word balloon can convey far more information than what's written in it could ever. It's a comic I really wish I'd read while I was in college in order to adequately defend the medium that I feel so passionately about, but at the time didn't have the vocabulary to do. So, on with the review of a comic that I happen to love. I've only just read this, but it came out in 2008. I found it going for a £5 in an Oxfam shop, and it's one I've actually been looking for quite some time and been meaning to read. It is I Kill Giants by Joe Kelly and Jim Ken Nimura. If I mispronounce that, I apologise. I Kill Giants is the story of a young girl called Barbara who lives at home with her brother and her older sister who looks after the household. We don't find out what happened to her parents until much later in the comic. In I Kill Giants, you actually follow the story of Barbara going from a furious ball of chaos to a strong and stand-up character. And it's a wonderful journey to go on, because you are immersed in the story along with her. Because Barbara is such a likeable character, you want her to win at the end. And there are certain moments in the book that are heartbreaking. I'm not ashamed to admit it had me in floods of tears at one point. And the way Barbara sees the world, full of pixies and demons and giants, we are never quite sure whether that's real or not. So it actually puts us in the same position as her best friend and some of the other characters in the comic, where because of that, we're trying to figure out Barbara as well. It's a very clever device used by the writer and artist in order to bring you into this world. And it completely does. The comic, it's not afraid to be dark, it's not afraid to be light, it's not afraid to be whimsical, and it is thick with allegory and metaphor, but it doesn't lay it on with a trowel. That's the best part about it. All the characters feel real, their reactions to Barbara feel genuine and well observed. The pacing of the story is wonderful. It takes its time when it needs to. It delivers in a panel what you need to feel in that moment. Nomura's artwork is very expressive, and you're drawn into it because of its cartoony nature. It delivers its information slightly faster than, say, a realistic style would. Every panel gives you all the information that you need. All the dialogue sounds real. There's no wasted words. There's no lines that don't need to be there. Everything in the book is so pitch perfectly balanced, and it delivers a story that has you cheering by the end of it. I would absolutely recommend this comic as a first time buy. I was very lucky to pick it up in Oxfam for £5. And that will probably have to be the subject of my next webcast. Where exactly do you pick comics up from, and why are they so flipping expensive? Okay, that's all for this issue, and thank you for listening.